So the first stage is to get the recruitment process right. That means putting in place a good job advert that doesn't fall foul of discrimination laws. I've seen a lot of clients in recent years that have run into issues here. A lot of it's common sense. So I can't think of any employers who would advertise for someone of a particular race or gender, but it can be easy to get tripped up. For example, if you advertise for a mature employee or someone with 10 years experience, that could be age discrimination. Or if you insist on only recruiting full-time employees, that could be indirectly discriminatory against women. Now, some types of discrimination can be justified, but it's important to focus on the criteria that's actually required for the job and avoid making decisions that are based on things like age, race, gender, and so on. And you should avoid the risk of a claim at that early stage in the employment relationship. So first of all, before you start thinking about a contract, you might want to think about sending them an offer letter. This can be quite useful because you can make it clear that the offer of employment is subject to things like satisfactory references, evidence of their right to work in the UK, and sites of their qualifications and so on. Once they've accepted your offer, and either before they've started the job or at the outset of their employment, you need to think about giving them a written contract of employment. All employees have a right to a written statement of the main terms and conditions of their employment within the first 2 months of their employment commencing. It's got to cover certain basic criteria like pay, place of work, hours, and so on. But many, if not most employers, will go further than that and put in place much more robust contracts of employment that cover off things like confidentiality, intellectual property. What happens after the employment relationship has ended? Are you concerned about employees leaving, taking clients with them, taking employees with them? This can all be covered off in the contract. But a contract is not necessarily all about protecting the business. If you're going to offer your employees incentives such as company sick pay, extra holidays, bonus, then these should all be included in the contract. It's amazing how many disputes can be avoided if there's a robust written contract in place which both the employer and the employee can refer to in the case of uncertainty. So a staff handbook contains all the policies and procedures which you want to apply to your workforce and your place of work. It can form part of the contract of employment, although it often doesn't, and it can cover everything from what happens if your workforce gets snowed in, what your policy is on dress code, and so on. The fact is that it should be tailor-made to your business. The most important policies to have are ones that deal with disciplinary and grievance procedures. Along with the contract of employment, a staff handbook is the best way to avoid disputes. If an employee started their job on or after the 6th of April 2012, they don't acquire the statutory protection against unfair dismissal until they've been with the business for 2 years. Now, what this means in practice is that in most cases, it's going to be relatively easy to dismiss an employee during the first 2 years of that relationship. Now, there are some key exceptions to that rule. For example, discrimination laws are going to apply no matter how long the employee has been with you. But what it does mean is that if things don't work out, if you feel the employee isn't right for the business, then within the first 2 years of the relationship, it is relatively easy to dismiss them without having to, first of all, identify a fair reason or follow a fair procedure. So the other piece of advice I would give to companies taking on their first employees is to make sure that you actively manage the employees. So by that, what I mean is to conduct regular performance reviews and appraisals, make sure that you deal with any grievances promptly, make sure that you deal with any disciplinary issues as soon as they arise. And if you follow those steps, then it will help you help you get the most out of your workforce and avoid any major issues.